Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at that snowstorm that is ongoing. It started last night in the deep south. It's moving up into the mid-Atlantic today. It looks much more intense than it looked as of yesterday morning. This storm's been constantly evolving. And we also have another snowstorm for these similar regions coming up potentially in about 4 days that we needed to talk about also. Anyways, before I get into things, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, what do you think about that January 7th potential for a snowstorm? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Let's get straight into this video, and first things first, we have two ongoing snowstorms. We have one up there clearly for the northwestern United States, Washington especially. And then we have this one down here for the southeastern United States where we've seen a lot of that happen for the deeper south regions, but now we're starting to see it become more of a mid-Atlantic snowstorm to this point. Let's zoom into the northwest real quick. I want to talk about this one. Obviously, the bigger snowstorm is in the east at this point, but we do have a bit of snowfall here for the state of Washington, especially here, and portions of northern Idaho as well, and some portions of those southern Cascades there in Oregon. This is mostly where we've been seeing the snowfall take place and then rain along the coast. This has been bringing some pretty heavy precipitation at times, especially here near Portland in mountainous regions there to the northeast of Portland. But regardless, this storm is kind of moving in a direction that's going to cause it to move out for the most part. Now let's move into the southeastern United States, and this storm has been overperforming thus far. And especially down here, we've gotten large snowfall totals coming in, very large compared to what was expected. In terms of how warm it was about 80 degrees, I think, the other day here for these regions, or upper 70s, similar to how it was in these regions. But it still came down. We're getting reports of 4 to 6 inches of snowfall for a lot of these regions, which makes me feel much more bullish for these regions, potentially seeing much more snowfall. Now, I am right on the fence of being involved with this one. This one has trended north away from my region for the most part, and I'm happy for all of you. You know what I mean? Like, weather has become much more about the entire country for me and not just myself as I've begun to make these videos. So I'm not really too worried about what conditions I see compared to just being kind of happy for the people that want snowfall to my north, because I know that they average getting more. So I'm not going to be greedy about it. I don't expect to see snowfall accumulate with this one, although a lot of these regions didn't as well. So with that being said, we've seen a lot of this heaviest snowfall transfer to northern Virginia at this point, areas in West Virginia, Maryland, D.C., Delaware, and southern New Jersey. And I do expect the heaviest totals to be in this region for sure. I think that area is the prime location to be. We need to see this mixing end here on the southern extent for that to take place. If not, we will see mostly that region up there near Washington, D.C., in through maybe Baltimore or just south there into southern Jersey as well. That's kind of my heaviest region. Let's zoom in here a little bit. I want to see what's going on for these northern regions. This is the bullseye for this storm. We are seeing that mixing head further and further south, so you can tell there's cold air coming in with this one. And the further south you are, the longer this is going to take. These areas are only going to see a few hours of that snowfall. It looks like Richmond is already switching over to sleet. Richmond might see more like 6 hours or so. And then your, Hampton Roads regions down here, you're maybe looking at 1 to 3 hours of snowfall. So at 6, you probably will begin to see accumulation eventually, but at 3, I'm much more doubtful of any accumulation taking place, just because, and that's 1 to 3, not 3 guaranteed. I don't even think these areas are guaranteed to see snowfall at this point. But it really has just trended north away from these regions, because originally it looked like these areas would see hours and hours of snowfall. It looked like snowfall would start for these regions before 8 a.m. A couple of days ago, but that just shows how far things can trend in 2 days. And when we look at this southern extent where a lot of that snow has come down, we can tell that blue is where the heaviest snowfall was located. And that just really moved through in a heavy fashion in these regions and began to accumulate very, very quickly. We got reports of, in general, 2 to 6 inches of snowfall throughout all of these regions in this circle, basically. And you could tell the snowfall didn't last for 6 to 12 hours. It lasted more like 3 to 6 hours, but it was so heavy, especially there in those blues, that it was able to accumulate. Very, very interesting setup we had here on our hands. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the model guidance. We're going to take a look at what's really in store for the rest of this storm, and then we're going to take a look at that potential for our next snowstorm in the eastern United States and why I think some severe weather might still be upcoming, unfortunately. Overall, I think our NAM model has had a really good handle on this storm. I think a lot of these higher resolution models have done great. Now, this is supposed to be about right now, and you can tell it looks very similar to what we're actually seeing. Very, very heavy snowfall in that southern extent. Maybe we're seeing a bit more heavier snowfall up here in these regions, but it has indicated that mixing that our radar is also indicating. So I think that's a good sign that this model has a really, really good handle on this system. Now, as we move towards about, I'd say it's around 12 p.m., we see a lot of that mixing taking place in here, much more than what was anticipated. And that's what I've been hearing from a lot of these regions down here, is that even though they saw that snowfall accumulate, there was a lot more sleet and mixing issues than what was anticipated with this storm. So whenever you hear that on the earlier side of the storm, you can kind of expect that that might be the case here on the eastern extent. And I told you guys yesterday, this one was a very complicated, complex system. And we're already seeing these twists and turns with this one that were just completely unexpected. And that's what I expected. It's kind of weird how that works. I expected the unexpected. That's kind of what I expected with this storm. That's a lot of expected. So let's move on to about 2 p.m. And this is when this system is going to begin to move offshore. Now, this is kind of the beginning of the end for the rainfall for a lot of these regions. This is when that rain snow line is really going to start to push eastward. As that low pressure system moves away from the coast, that's when the opportunity for potential snowfall begins for these regions that are still holding on to that rain. And we can see 1 hour later, that blue line here. And actually, let me move this one back. We will take a look at a different view here. Not that one. This one. Okay. So this is when the low pressure system is here, right near the Outer Banks. 1 hour later, look at that rain snow line right there. Okay, so that rain snow line is shoving its way east. 1 hour later, we see most of these regions becoming snowfall as that low pressure system is moving further and further from the coast. It's that low pressure system being close that is keeping the warm around. As it begins to eventually move away, that's when that rain snow line completely moves away. Look at how heavy that snowfall is coming down, especially in this corridor. That's why we're expecting so much to be possible, potentially 8 to 12 inches of snowfall, if it can begin to accumulate very, very quickly. Let's move this on. And we can see if we get hours of snowfall. That's 2 hours later. So again, these areas could see 1 to 3 hours of snowfall, potentially more. It just depends. And then we still see it going on by about 8 p.m. for a lot of these regions. But in this lighter shade, I wouldn't be surprised if it's more like snow showers. And actually, if I change this to our composite reflectivity, you can see it kind of is more like showers hanging around. It kind of moves out before that. But we can see that really heavy snowfall in here taking place. Sometimes this is more accurate, but regardless, we see the snowfall move out by tonight. So as far as snowfall totals on this model, this is totals. This is what the model would indicate would be happening. So again, this model is calling for 1 to 2 inches in here. Doubtful that accumulates. Now the 2 to 6 inches in here might have a chance of accumulating, not to 6 inches, but probably a little bit less. Now I think a lot of these, 12 to 18 inch amounts in here, I think that's going to be more around 10 to 12. I really do feel that way. Now, this storm might totally surprise me, and it already has in many ways, so don't be surprised if it does end up being more, but I really do feel like this storm is a bit bullish here on the models compared to what actually will end up happening due to a few factors, including that unexpected mixing, which does have me a bit concerned, especially on the southern extent of this. Maybe going to take away a couple of inches depending on how long that lasts. But also the warmer ground temperatures, the already soaked ground, which will add a few hours of, non-accumulating snowfall. The snowfall ends up cooling the ground as it falls, You drop ice in a bucket of water long enough, and that water will freeze eventually, but maybe not right away. Right away, the ice melts in the water, but it's cooling that water until eventually the ice can just begin to affect the water more than the water affects the ice. I don't know. Okay, kind of a weird analogy there. Let's go ahead, take on a national view. We're going to take on a national view. We're going to move on to our precipitation type. We can see the storminess is not over for the Northwest, by the way. We do have some snowfall coming down for these regions. That storm moves out for the eastern United States, and we get a little bit more of a quieter pattern. A little bit flat here with the jet stream. Let's move on further, and we do see this snowstorm kind of diving down this way with a cold front, or at least the trough is moving into the east. It's not a very potent cold front. We don't see precipitation along it, really. Well, I guess eventually we do. We see some storminess beginning to build back in for the Northwest, but we see another storm building in. This is the afternoon hours of Thursday, January 6th. I almost said December. It's only 3 days from now. We actually have a pretty heavy snowstorm developing here for a lot of the Ohio valleys. So we're getting more snowy in the east. We're getting more cold in the east, and it's beginning to look a lot more like Christmas. No, not Christmas, winter. Here we go. Let's play this out. Look at this. Huge. Okay, I want to zoom into the east here, but first off, huge trough in the east. This is what it takes for snow in the east, guys. The jet stream is like this. These areas could get some snowfall, that's for sure. Let's move into the east. We're getting heavy snowfall here for the northeast. This is only 100 hours out. This isn't the most far-fetched storm in the world, and we've had this signal for quite a while. You can see it eventually moves up to the northeast and becomes a classic Miller B nor'easter. This is a heavy snowstorm, guys. Hefty, hefty snowstorm for sure. And as we look at the 3-day snowfall on this one, which will exclude that snowstorm that's ongoing now, we can see a dusting, if anything, here in the gray, 2 to 6 inches here in the blue, and then in these purples we see 6 to 10, and then in these pinks we see 10 inches plus, so about 10 to 12 to even more inches of snowfall. That's a pretty classic snowstorm if you ask me. Look at that track. That's pretty classic, and in a winter like this, you just got to be thankful, or unthankful. It just depends on how you look at it, of course. I know there's a lot of snow lovers that follow my account. There's a lot of snow haters as well. And the snow haters can't even believe that they're snow lovers, but there really is people that just love snow. But it looks pretty classic, and it's surprising in how December went. But this just goes to show that the pattern could switch on a dime, and just because December was one way, it does not mean that January will be the same way, or February. Things can completely flip into the opposite direction, and this winter could be a cold and snowy one still, despite what December was, if January and February combined are decent enough. So with that being said, let's take back on a national view. That storm has moved out by the time of reaching the afternoon hours of Saturday the 8th. We do get a bit of this storminess down here. This is when I think severe weather is a bit possible. I did want to touch on that since that is in the thumbnail. We do see that for a long time there's pretty much no cape, but we begin to see that cape come back in a little bit here. We see starting on the 9th, and maybe just for the 9th. But this is kind of what we took a look at in December when we had a few severe weather days in there. It was just single day events where there was high cape that was able to make its way in, and then a cold front blasts through behind it. That's what this looks like here to me. So severe weather will be possible throughout the month of January. I'm not saying that it's for sure because this is 156 hours out, but I do think that more severe weather in the pattern we will be in, since it will be a little bit back and forth, I definitely could see the possibility for some severe weather. Anyway, for today's confidence tab, we remain at a 4 out of 6. We talked about that short-range snowstorm, which I'm a little bit more confident in. Not that much, though, because of those other factors I mentioned before. But we did also talk about a longer-range snowstorm, which makes me much less confident. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, what do you think is the maximum snowfall we will see with this ongoing snowstorm? And Jaron Rush said, I think 8 to 12 inches will be the maximum over Delaware and southern New Jersey, and that's exactly where I indicated my bullseye would be, and I think 8 to 12 is a good estimate as well, so I really like your comment there. Good estimate in my books. For today's Patreon highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our Platinum patrons, Bill Crates, James Wade, Dovin Nagel, Little Pan, Mandy Birchfield, Patrick Strickland, Dave Scott, and Donna Carnes as well. I would also like to thank our Diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Kudelasa, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, Bill Dallas, Gary's, and John Colisi also. I would also like to thank our channel members Catbite, Stephen Fan, and Jeremy Cox as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.